Welcome to the latest video in the series wandering through books from the shelves behind me as we talk through their methodology, not simply their content. The path at this point has clearly become very unorthodox, but there is a method to the madness, and it is very much in the methods themselves. From basic logic all the way to more complex inference. Last week, we sat with Spinoza and his geometrical method, seeing how the most basic of ideas can create a lattice of meaning that shifts our understanding. Of course, Elderon, have to give you a little bit of a note, had to add the reality to me that it's not just the 6 points I brought up. You have to continue to do work. You have to continue to build the scaffold of further points to support those things. You have to harden that lattice. It's funny that I'm able to use a word like lattice, though, right? How is it I can use a term like that, and you have that meaning flow right through you? You get it. You knew exactly what I meant, even though I'm being as inexact as I can be. It's abstract. It's borrowed from crystallography, or maybe gardening in a trellis, or I don't know, whatever, but you didn't stop to think about it. You just understood what I was saying, what I meant. The word carried meaning across this gap between my thinking, my speaking, and yours without either of us having to really work at it. Alfred North Whitehead tackled this exact problem in our next book, his 1927 work, Symbolism, Its Meaning and Effect. But he discovered that the gap between abstract thought and concrete experience, it's not really a bug in how things work or a weird sort of It's actually a feature, a very useful one. See, every moment of ordinary experience involves symbolic processes that do the same kind of connecting work that logic does. It just does it at a much more basic level. It's basically a fundamental way we learn. All right, so stick with me here. You wake up. The sunlight's hitting your eyes, filling the room, and immediately you think, God, I need a coffee. You don't think, yes, photons are striking my retinas, or, oh, visual processing of the day is occurring in my brain. You just go, oh, coffee. This happens so fast, you actually don't even notice it happening. Light becomes morning, becomes coffee need in a seamless flow of moments. But think about how weird that actually is that this occurs. Your body just translated electromagnetic radiation into a craving for a bitter brown liquid drug. How? That weird translation? This is what Whitehead calls symbolic reference. It kind of happens all the time. Right now is you're hearing my words, your ears, your eyes, your senses in general are taking in small amounts of pixels on a screen, vibrations from your device in the form of sound. Your brain is somehow turning these things into ideas about philosophy. The pixels, though, aren't the ideas. The vibrations aren't the ideas, and the ideas aren't in the pixels, but somehow through some process that you probably haven't interrogated, pixels and vibrations become meaning. Now, this may seem obvious to you. I've run into many people who view it as such. Of course, this is the case, but this translation between things that kind of don't have the meaning in them, this isn't tiny. And thanks to Whitehead and the work that he undertakes, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about not just really how symbols function, which we will, but how he breaks down something so obvious and how he runs with it to work towards emancipating us from being stuck in a rut. So, the setup's simple. It's about making space for contradictions. It sounds like a lot. The first thing Whitehead does is he takes what seems like a contradiction, that we have recognition happening as we see symbols. Starts there. He splits this into two types of event, though. There's direct recognition on one side and symbolic reference on the other. He doesn't do away with them. He builds on them. And he does this by talking how the different parts of the function work together. He says, direct experience is infallible. What you have experienced, you have experienced. But symbolism, that is very fallible in the sense that it may induce actions, feelings, emotions, and beliefs about things which are mere notions. So stop and appreciate his wording. He's not really defining these terms. He doesn't argue really for a position. What he does, more or less, is create sort of a conceptual architecture that can allow you to hold these contradictory truths simultaneously. And you can be certain about your experience, absolutely certain. It is always correct. Your experience is correct. And you can also be wrong about the world. This is something we've all experienced and are very aware of. I hope you've got a level of self-awareness. But what he's doing here is he's splitting these things into two registers. Traditional approaches to knowledge, especially what I would say is like dogmatic images of knowledge, get stuck because they try to make everything fit in a pattern, a single one, or a single mode of existence, a single thing. Either your senses are giving you reliable information about the world, but how do you explain illusions? Or they don't do that. Then how do you explain successful action? Either reason gives you certainty, but then how do you connect it to experience? Or it doesn't. Then what fucking good is it? These things that sort of fall back and forth that have always been talked about but never dealt with because they are in contradictory form, Whitehead sidesteps. He sidesteps it entirely by refusing to play by those old rules. Instead of picking a side, he builds a framework that allows both to be handled reliably. Reliability on one side and error on the other. Certainty and fallibility, individual experience, and shared reality. See, Whitehead is not making a purely logical distinction. It's not staying in that space. He's identifying something that happens in experience. See, you really can be certain about what you're experiencing while being mistaken about what it means. The last time you were convinced someone was angry with you, but it turned out they were just concentrating. On that setup, your experience of resting bitch face is absolutely perfectly real and accurate. The mistake isn't in what you experienced. It's how you connected that experience with what it meant, what the world is, how the world is. This is the space Whitehead is creating, a place where experience can be reliable and interpretation can also fail, where you can trust your senses and still be wrong about reality. It's not a compromise between oppositions. It's a recognition that the opposition itself was based on a false assumption, faulty wiring, right? And from this, Whitehead works to show how all of this comes together. For him, he talks about two modes of perception, two different ways your body engages with the world. There's presentational immediacy. This is that thing that gives you like the clear, distinct qualities located in definite places. You could say the quantitative view of things, a red chair 3 feet to your left. It's an immediacy, apperception of it. It operates in that way. Colors, sound, shapes, textures, location in space, all these crisp, well-defined aspects of what you perceive. On the other hand, we have causal efficacy. I really love this phrasing because this is what gives you the sense that real things are affecting you, pushing on you, making a difference in your body. The feeling that something substantial is there, that forces are at work, that the world is actively impinging on you, that the world is actively impinging on you. The concept of modes here, well, becomes really important. It's fundamental to philosophy in a bunch of different ways. And this framework emerges from the recognition that singular unified approaches, as I mentioned before, fail to capture the complexity or contradictions of experience or being. Last week, I talked about mode. I did very quickly with Spinoza because, well, I mean, he's kind of the guy that mode sort of comes from, at least when philosophers mostly talk about it. See, Spinoza saw everything as a single substance that expresses itself through modes. You're a mode, I'm a mode, everything's a mode. Mode. Old MacDonald had a mode. It's a word we use a lot in philosophy. Most people don't consider and spend time with it. And it's really important to Whitehead. But think about it. How many times have you played a video game that had multiple modes? It's the same word. It means very much the same thing. The modes change the systems of the game, sort of, but not a lot. It's still the game underneath it. It's still the same game, just different modes of it. Halo is Halo in multiplayer or single player. It's different ways the primary game, the fundamental systems and structure express itself. Philosophers use modal distinctions to avoid reductive explanations, and it allows us to keep a sort of systematic coherence through all of it, instead of forcing everything into a single category or explanation. It allows us to create space for differences that are ultimately irreducible. Right? Modes represent different registers or dimensions of underlying reality, each with its own logic and characteristics, but connected to, synthesizing, producing a complete understanding still of all of it. For Whitehead, his specific usage, these two modes I mention of perception, they represent fundamentally different ways the body engages with its environment. Each provides distinct but necessary information about reality, rather than treating perception as a single process that succeeds or fails. Whitehead identifies this presentational immediacy, this spatial and qualitative data, and causal efficacy, which is felt forces and influences, as complementary modes that have to be synthesized through a symbolic reference to create what we call meaningful experience. That thing we kind of all have. This modal approach, it allows him to explain both the precision of scientific measurement and the felt sense of causal connection without reducing one to the other. The philosophical power of that framework lies in its ability to maintain the integrity of these different kinds of experience and showing how they work together, avoiding both the sort of traditional empiricist reduction of everything to pure sense data and also the rationalist dismissal of bodily felt experience as subjective and dismissible. The red chair isn't really just a collection of sense data. It isn't really just a pattern of forces. Your body engages with chair reality through both modes at once. Think about it. When you see that chair, presentational immediacy gives you something like red, wooden, rectangular, 3 feet away, facing slightly to the left. A nice mahogany finish with any luck. Maybe a leather seat. I'm not sure how red works with leather, but I like leather. Leather, it's good. It's precise. It's located. It's qualified. But the fuck does that do? It doesn't tell you what you do with it. It doesn't tell you it's a chair. It's the qualities of the thing, but not what it does. Is it going to hold your weight? Do you sit on it? Do you put your feet on it? Do you rest a soda on it? Do you put boxes on it? Is it going to tip over? What is it for? Well, causal efficacy. That gives you something else. Solid thing there, supportive, stable, something I can rest on or against, but it's vague what there is. What color is it? What material? How big it is relative to other things? How far away is it? Each mode is brilliant at what it does. Absolutely useless for what the other does. Presentational immediacy. This will give you precision, but not significance. Causal efficacy gives you significance, but no precision. And we need both. But you can't have them together because they work differently. This is why Whitehead keeps both as modes instead of trying to reduce one to the other. It's not a theoretical indecision. It's not an illogical paralogism. It's recognizing you actually use different kinds of equipment for different kinds of engagement with the world. Your visual system is optimized for spatial relationships and service qualities, right? That's how it works. Your haptic system is a resistance, weight, texture, and temperature. Your vestibular system is optimized for balance. And orientation is inner ear shit, by the way, for those who don't know the word. They're all engaging with the same chair, but they all do different things to engage with it. The experienced chair, the chair we actually deal with, it isn't given by either mode alone. It emerges from how your body connects to what it's getting from both modes. And that connection is what Whitehead calls symbolic reference. It's kind of the big deal of the entire book. Now, how meaning gets made and how it works and how these two two completely different things engage and get connected is a whole different beast. Whitehead calls this process, as I said, symbolic reference. But this isn't something that's like happening in your head. It's a really common thing. When we use the word symbolic, people think, oh, it's an idea. No, not for Whitehead. Whitehead's a materialist. Really big deal. See, what this is your body in your head, making connections through material processes. This isn't an idealized form. When you see red chair 3 feet away, the presentational immediacy, and simultaneously feel solid supportive thing there I can sit on, that thing, causal efficacy. Symbolic reference is what fuses them into, I'm going to sit down in a chair. But the fusion, that's not a purely mental event. It doesn't exist outside of the material realm. It is your eyes that track the chair's edges, your muscles moving towards it, your balance system calculating how to approach it, your hands anticipating the texture of the leather or whatever it may be. As he says, quote, the organic functioning whereby there is transition from symbol to the meaning. That is organic functioning. Your body doing things, moving, adjusting, preparing, and responding. Symbolic reference is material processes, not purely mental representations. So let's go back to the coffee example. Follow what happens. Light fills the room, hits your eyes. It's not random light. It's a specific pattern of light your visual system has learned to recognize as like morning sunlight through my bedroom window in my bed when I'm laying where I lay. Simultaneously, your body receives all kinds of other information. There's shifts in temperature, air pressure, sounds from outside, hopefully birds tweeting, but maybe you're in a city. Lots of noise versus what was happening earlier. The feeling of the sheets against your skin, your sheets, the position of your limbs. None of this means coffee. But your body has learned through thousands upon thousands of repetitions to connect this constellation of sensory input with coffee-seeking behavior. It's not because you decided, oh yes, sunrise is coffee time, but because your system, all of it, the nervous, the muscular, hormonal, neural, whatever, it's all been trained to link these patterns. When symbolic reference works, it's invisible. Morning becomes coffee in a very smooth flow. You do not experience 3 separate steps. You experience getting up and getting coffee. It's an immediate response to opening your eyes. But that's the thing. When symbolic reference breaks down, you can actually see it happening. You ever wake up disoriented, not sure where you are or what time it is, whether drinking or in someone else's bed? Good for you. Or in a park or wherever the fuck it is. And has that happened? Even in your own bed? If you ever had blackout curtains in a hotel room and you wake up and you can't see anything and you think you've gone blind, disoriented, it's terrifying. It's terrifying. It's happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to you. That moment. This is symbolic reference struggling to connect what you're perceiving with what it's expecting, what has been happening before. Light hits your eyes just fine. Your body's receiving forces and pressures normally. It's not like you're disembodied, but the connection might as well be. The modes aren't working smoothly. Think about being in a foreign country where you can't read the signs. Pre-Google Translate for you kids. Your visual system, it's working fine. You can see shapes and colors clearly. You can see the street signs. You can see notes everywhere of what to do. Where are you at? But they're in a language you don't know. The symbolic reference system, it can't connect those visual patterns to meanings you can act on. The symbols, they're there. The reference is broken. It's why Whitehead's analysis is so much more sophisticated than theories that treat symbols as mental representation. He's not talking about images in some ideal thought that refer to things of matter. He's talking about material processes in your body that create connections between different ways of engaging with the world. The images are material. So, you might say, Brooks, if everything is material, then why would there be errors? Well, that fuck up, that happens when these systems don't work, that's not really from the modes themselves. Like I said, both are as accurate as they need to be. When presentational immediacy, when it shows you chair shape, that's what's there, it's a chair shape. Causal efficacy gives you the feeling of something solid and supportive. That's what you're responding to, real forces in your environment. Both modes give you accurate information in their own register. And then you sit and find out it was made of paper. Whitehead says, error is primarily the product of symbolic reference. See, error happens in the connection between the modes, not the modes themselves. When you walk into a glass door,
there's nothing to be nervous about. Just be yourself. You're a freaking prince.
your eyes see empty space ahead of you. Presentational immediacy, it's working fine, giving you accurate visual information of the absence of visible obstacles. Your body feels free movement possible. Causal efficacy also working fine, telling you the path is clear and to begin moving. The error happens when the symbolic reference connects no visible barrier with no barrier at all. These are not the same thing. The glass door is kind of a perfect example. It's a way that the gap is exploited by the world or by things, and how we run into stuff that's really between the modes. Glass is designed to be invisible, where we have windows to see through them explicitly. That's their point. Your symbolic reference system, trained on thousands of encounters with visible obstacles, that's an edge case. Glass doors. Magic tricks are probably my favorite. I can't help but recommend one of the greatest card tricks I've ever seen in my life. And if you watch, he's not really fooling your senses directly. That's not really possible. No magician fools your senses directly. Instead, they manipulate how symbolic reference connects what you see with what you expect to be able to touch or verify. They'll show you a ball and let your symbolic reference system assume you'll be able to find it where you saw it go. 3-card Monty doesn't work drastically differently. This kind of explains something other theories struggle with. How you can be completely confident about your experience and be entirely wrong about the world. Both sources of confidence are legitimate. You really did see what you thought you saw. You did feel what you thought you felt. The mistake is in how your body connects those experiences. I do want to be careful about all my language I've used. I've kind of had to. Language is tough. I've used terms like failure, mistake, failing, talking about wrong things. Errors aren't really failure. It has such a negative connotation. See, for Whitehead, this is how the system learns and adapts. Every time a symbolic reference makes a mistake, it's an opportunity for new connections to form. Children live lives of mistakes. We don't consider them failures, but somehow there's an age where that changes. Whitehead actually has a great way of talking about this with the famous Aesop's fable. It's a dog who dropped a piece of meat to grasp its reflection in the water, is greedy. He says, "We must not, however, judge too severely of error. In the initial states of mental process, error in symbolic reference is the discipline which promotes imaginative freedom." Yes, the dog did lose his meat. That sucks, but he gained something else. The beginning of an understanding that visual appearances don't always correspond to graspable realities, maybe even the nature of how reflection works itself. That's the lesson, the crucial lesson that could be learned through making mistakes. That's why Whitehead's system, again, is so powerful. Error isn't a bug. It isn't a thing to regret. It is a feature of growth. It is how symbolic reference systems evolve and become sophisticated. Every mistake is going to create information about the limits of current connections. With this, it will open possibilities for new ones. Your body, it's not a container holding correct or incorrect mental symbols that refer to an external physical world. Your body is part of the physical world. Every part of each process is correct, actual, true in its way. symbolic reference, well, that's the physical process, material process happening in and through the material engagement with your environment. So think about what this means when you see red. That experience of redness is not just in your mind. It's a material interaction involving light wavelengths, retinal cells, optic nerves, visual cortexes, and in fact, your whole body's orientation and movement in ways we don't even have the time to go over. The redness emerges from the material interaction between bodily organs and electromagnetic radiation in the environment. So you say, "I'll look at that red." But what if it's any of these colors? Well, none of what you experienced is wrong. It's all right, but the combination, the process of intertwining them, when I inform you that all of these are actually off red, another shade, maybe some Pantone color called red lipstick or dog dick. I hate Pantone so much. You're not wrong. You learn a bit more, though, about those interactions. You learn about variances in hue, contrast, saturation, chroma, more, gamma of your monitor maybe. Have fun. Color calibration's a bitch. But this is why different cultures inhabit genuinely different symbolic worlds. It's not just that they have different ideas about the same things. That's reductionist. They have different material practices that create different connections between perception and action, different ways of organizing bodily engagement with environments. Think about how you learn to see food as edible or inedible. This isn't really abstract categorization. It's your body learning to respond to substances, salivating at certain smells and having interest driving towards them, feeling nauseous at others, repulsed even, reaching for this thing, throwing the other away. The symbolic connection safe to eat. It exists in this material coordination, not in mental representations. So if symbolic reference works through material processes in individual bodies, well, it also works through material processes in social bodies, institutions, technologies, cultural practices, entire economic systems, governments of the world. Think about how you learn to see certain pieces of paper as money. That's not just a mental association. Your whole body learned complex patterns of behavior. Reaching for money when you want something, when you open your wallet, how to pay before something else, noticing the cues that you're the one that has to pay for dinner, even though someone else might want to pay for dinner. Or do you make the gesture first? Feeling anxiety when you don't do it right, or maybe you might not have enough. Experiencing satisfaction when you accumulate wealth. Organizing your daily movements around earning and spending. These patterns, they exist in the coordination between millions of individual bodies and institutional systems. There's a lot of banks, stores, cash checking places, workplaces, legal systems, whatever it is, all material arrangements that shape how individual bodies connect symbolic reference, paper patterns, with causal efficacy, getting the things you need. It is the task of reason to understand and purge the symbols on which humanity depends. When Whitehead says this, it's not about eliminating symbols or finding some symbol-free truth. That's it. The wording is very particular. He's talking about understanding how symbolic systems operate so we can work with them more intelligently. When symbolic systems become dominant, they shape what individual bodies can perceive and how they can act. Think about how urban environments train you to see certain spaces as private property, others as public spaces, and how you walk through them is so different. It's not mental knowledge. Your body learns differently in these places. You react differently, you're treated differently, you're spoken to differently. How you treat everyone also becomes different. Anxiety or comfort in response to these environmental cues is everywhere. These symbolic systems become material infrastructure. Laws, architecture, economic systems, technologies, all of these things shape how individual symbolic reference operates. They make certain connections easy and pretty much automatic, while making others difficult or even totally impossible. But it also means resistance and change are possible. If you understand how symbolic reference works, you can work to create different connections, patterns, possibilities for how bodies relate to environments and each other. Look at politics. Look at the last decade. You can try to rationally describe and play inside the symbolic space already owned by everyone, telling everyone why they should be voting for you. And when you do, you become the Democrats. Frankly, however, if you introduce something new in the space, a thing that mixes up that symbolic setup, then suddenly the jackass that everyone was laughing at, maybe someone that the opposition actually put forward and pushed so certain they could beat this guy, changed things enough to control it. Step back for a minute and look at this set of tools. This is the point. Do not try to solve these contradictions, eliminating them. Create space where they can coexist. Instead of choosing between, is perception reliable and is perception unreliable, Whitehead created a framework where both are true in different registers. When you encounter problems that seem to force impossible choices, stop there. Look for ways to create a conceptual space where the contradictory aspects can operate simultaneously. Build basic distinctions that do real work. Whitehead's two modes aren't some weird academic set of categories. They correspond to different kinds of equipment your body actually uses. When you're analyzing complex systems, look for distinctions that map onto real differences in how systems operate, not just theoretical logical possibilities. Focus on connections and processes rather than things and properties. The experienced world emerges from how different modes of engagement become connected. They don't emerge from the modes themselves. So when you're trying to understand these complicated phenomena, pay attention to processes that create connections rather than analyzing isolated singular elements. Make abstract concepts material, because they are. Whitehead shows how symbolic reference operates through these processes bodily. And when you're working with abstract ideas, keep asking, where are the material processes? How do these concepts connect to actual practices, technologies, institutions, bodily behaviors? Scale it up systematically, individual symbolic reference. It connects social symbolic systems through material processes at multiple levels. When you understand how something works at one scale, look for how those similar processes operate at larger or smaller. Understand error, mistakes, failures as information instead. Mistakes in symbolic reference reveal the limits of current connections. It's here you find opportunities for new ones. When systems fail, don't fix them. Use the failure to understand how the system works and other arrangements that might connect to these. The goal of any of this is overall, and I think Whitehead would agree with me, it is not to become a Whitehead expert. It's to learn how this kind of systematic thinking works so you can build equipment for whatever problems you might actually be facing. It's philosophy at its best. It gives you tools for thinking that can handle complexity without reducing it to simple big man, big idea bullshit, that can work with contradictions without being paralyzed into shittiness by them, that can connect abstract analysis to concrete possibilities for actions. And next week, we're going to do that. Next week, we're going to be diving into Maurice Godelier, who uses a lot of the similar methods, I kind of maybe hinted at one or two here, to analyze the relationship between ideas and material conditions in social systems. But for now, try applying Whitehead's approach to something you're dealing with, that you're experiencing. Think about the two registers. Don't look for a right answer. Build a framework that can handle multiple aspects of the situation at once. See what becomes visible when you stop trying to reduce complexity and start creating tools to embrace it. Speaking of things that you can do materially, though, if you appreciate this and other videos that are here, please do head to patreon.com/DGQC. I owe my Patreons everything. Thank you very much for supporting this. A membership and a subscription, a like and subscribe would be brilliant. And of course, if you're intrigued and you want to begin your journey in philosophy, you can always join our Discord at discord.gg/DGQC. And I'll see you soon enough.